Hello. So this is my first live on YouTube. Oh my God. Very exciting. I'm going to see if I can put my AirPods in so I can cancel out any noise. Okay. Okay. So hopefully that isn't an issue. Um, So, welcome for you guys that are tuning in. We are talking Mercury retrograde today. We're getting ready for the first retrograde of 2021. Big stuff ahead as this year is pretty much all about Aquarius energy. We've got some eclipses happening in Sagittarius and Gemini, which are going to take us forward and help educate us as we unfold a new future for the world and ourselves. But those glimpses that we get going forward, we also get a retrograde. And so we are here to discuss, what this retrograde is going to look like for us, what you can expect in the month of February, which is going to be prime time when Mercury is in that retrograde period, and how to just make, sense of it all. Because Mercury retrograde can be very confusing. This is the planet that rules our thinking mind, our active mind. This is the one that we rely on to move throughout the day, to get things done, to stay somewhat organized, but to also allow changes and flexibility and movement. This is what I would call the planet of mobility. This is essential to us in our lives because it is so close to the sun, right? As the sun starts shining on me here, Mercury is the closest planet to the sun, and that means a huge impact on us because of that proximity. So when it goes into its retrograde period, we really feel it because it's right there. It's right beside us at all times. We rely on it so much. The sun is who we are. That's the center. That's what no one can shake from you. It's your internal, confident, purpose-oriented self. And so with Mercury constantly moving around it and so close to it, this communication, this sense of health, and mobility really, is relied upon, in this incarnation of us, right? In our life. We need the ability to move, to get up and to travel, to learn, to exercise, to get things done. I mean, that's why Mercury retrograde scares so many people, because this little tiny planet, the smallest one in our solar system, that usually can't be seen because it is so close to the sun, has such a huge impact on us because we rely on it every day. Every day. And I'm going to change the blinds here because this is already distracting me a little bit. Let's see. All right. Let's see if that's better. Nope. That is worse. Okay. One second. All right. And that perhaps is a great example of what to expect here. I can't really do this outside today because we are getting some nasty weather in Sedona, and we might even be getting snow starting tomorrow. And so I usually have been doing these transit talks outside, but today we're going in. And honestly, I don't even know how all this works. This is my first live stream on here. So I don't even know if you guys can make comments or interact as much. So you're going to have to let me know. I don't see an option for that yet, or like any kind of Q&A place on here. So this will be interesting, but I am testing my comfort zone and getting out there because I feel like With the work that I do, it's really about putting um, being accessible. It's not directly service oriented. Doing astrology and interpreting stuff that is light years away from us. But the service humanitarian part of it is allowing people to realize their potential, to understand themselves more fully, and to get on the same page, because the more that we interact and we understand the movements of the planets and how they're impacting us, we can better serve the collective and go out and really prove ourselves and accomplish things that benefit everybody. And that's really where it starts. And so this kind of collective work, this astrology, which is so big picture, needs to be in my opinion, it needs to be more readily accessible and involved with the community at large. And so that's why I am changing a lot of the structure of my work thus far and making it so it's more alive. It's in the moment, so you guys can interact, you can ask questions. I'm going to get, hopefully by the next live, something set up to where you guys can ask a question for a small fee if you have like a tarot question that you want me to do on the live, maybe towards the end of the session once we wrap up kind of what we're talking about. Just ways to make this more interactive, because I really want to connect with you guys. Like, it's weird to do this in a one way sort of scenario, because I just find myself talking to myself and thinking and overthinking, about the ideas that I have. And this is just kind of one of those ways, with those tools that's always available for me and I really haven't utilized to its full potential. So thank you guys for still staying tuned in here. Again, if there's a way that you can ask a question, please feel free. I don't see it on my end, but I do not know what it looks like on yours. So let's get into it here. Now, I don't know if I can screen share on here, but I have taken some diligent notes. So Mercury retrograde. So this is going to be happening from January 30th to February 20th this year. So basically a month's time. And if we factor in the shadow phase of Mercury or any planet going into retrograde, it's usually another week or so on top of that period. So we're talking about, in the next 3 days, we're already going to be in that shadow phase where the planet is getting ready to slow down before it stations and starts to look like it's going backwards. Which will officially happen on January 30th at 5 p.m. So I personally, I like to see the exact time of these events because I love numbers, and numerology ties a lot into astrology, tarot. There's a lot of crossover that these things have. And the reason why 5 p.m. on the dot is so significant here. Well, one, because it's very rare to see a transit happen at the exact hour and minute, like 5 exactly. It's not 5:01 or 4:59. It's 5 p.m. exactly that this transit is going to start. And what's even more exciting with Mercury, we always see some duality, right? We see some things in multiples. And the end of this Mercury retrograde is going to be stopping on February 20th, 2021 at 5 p.m., the exact same time and minute. So 5 and 5. And I just think that is so crazy and bizarre that it can end exactly however many days that is from the exact time it started to the minute. I mean, I think that's wild. So let me know what you guys think about that. But we are going to definitely discuss the significance of 5 in general, because 2021 is a year of 5 in numerology. And it is a really, really big time for change. Obviously, we already have new leadership emerging with the inauguration. And five is a real big year to test us, to test our willpower, to test our boldness, to test our courage and our strength within. So fives in numerology are, if you've ever seen a chart, imagine a tic-tac-toe chart. You've got three lines, and it's squared off, and or if you've ever seen Hollywood squares, that is very much what a numerology chart looks like. And so the five is actually the center square. It is fully encompassed. That's a perfect square, and the reason why it's such an impactful place in numerology and in life, fives indicate to us like the toughest times in our lives, that push us to doing the things that are most fulfilling, most impactful. And it's stepping into a new sense of audience. Like I'm doing here, I'm trying to reach out to more people, not just to get more exposure for my work, but to kind of make this more interactive and engaging for you guys too. And so five is very much that. It's getting yourself on a bigger light, a bigger stage. And so the work that we're going to be doing this year, is how do we become more accessible? How do we get more attention? That inspires us to continue on and do these hard things, because it can be very hard to do this stuff alone, to step outside of your comfort zone, to maybe work in the field that you've always wanted to work in, especially if you have people around you that just aren't on board with that, or that just can't see the potential that you have in yourself, and you have to constantly remind yourself like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. That's all very much wrapped up in the five. And so this year can basically feel like the Olympics to us. Five is tied to Leo and Scorpio. And those are the two signs that have the potential to get huge exposure. Scorpio usually starts from nothing and achieves wild fame and success, that huge transformation. And Leo is the one that, is very personal, tries and tries again to overcome all their obstacles in life. And so it can feel very much like, 2021 itself is like this huge Olympic event. And you're not just doing like one event, you're doing like all of them. So like you're on bars, you're on vault, you're on the beam, like whatever those stratuses are called, apparatuses, is that a word? And you have more and more to do each time. And so the five means that all of this work we've done so far is we're showing it to people. We are coming into that limelight, and this is the moment, the year where we can find huge success and achievement for ourselves, because with obstacles there come rewards, right? Otherwise we wouldn't even do them. We'd be like, well, I don't have to do that, there's nothing for me that way, so why would I make it tougher on myself if there's no payoff? So the fact that this is a tough year and that there are obstacles, as we move away from 2020 in the year of four, which was all about focus on health, and our foundation, which we all did. We were all working and living at home all the time, and health was a huge focus, and it still will be, but we're transitioning to five, which is where we find our inner strength. And whenever we access internal confidence or strength, the naysayers come out, right? The people that challenge us or oppose us. And so in this year, we are going to find, some stiff competition out there, that is going to sometimes encourage us and sometimes discourage us from pushing through. Sometimes we can handle it, and other times, we feel more sensitive about the competition, out there. And so there can be a lot of personal conflict this year, but it is all meant to strengthen you, to make sure that your ideas, your beliefs, and who you are internally are on the same page. Because that's the only way that your future can unfold. You can make the most of it is if you're in alignment with yourself. That's really what it's about. And also making sure that those around you have your back. These are almost like personal tests to see who's worth the effort and who's not, right? Because we're going to be taking in a lot of teachers, a lot of new studies as we move through these eclipses in Gemini and Sagittarius. So a lot of people are going to be going back to school or starting teaching programs, to help guide us into the future. And this is where we see a lot of that personal stuff come up. But it's really exciting. I'm super excited about it. Yes, we're still living in COVID times, but there's a lot of astrology that indicates that it won't be for much longer. And this Mercury retrograde has a part to play in that. And so we're going to talk about what this little planet has to do with COVID and 2021, as we're starting out the year already with our first Mercury retrograde. So, like I said, January 30th to February 20th is going to be the prime time for this transit to happen. If you know where Mercury is in your chart, you can kind of get a glimpse of how it's going to impact you the most. But if you look at from 26 degrees Aquarius to 11 degrees Aquarius, where that falls in your chart, that's where Mercury is going to be going backwards. So we are starting out on the 30th at 26 degrees Aquarius. And that's at the very end of Aquarius. That means that Mercury has already done a lap through that sign. Mercury is like, okay, I see what I need to do now. Aquarius is the future, right? And so Mercury going through like, ooh, I found out all the information I need. I know what I need to do now. This is what I need to put into place to attain my future that I now see and want for myself. And then the retrograde takes us a step back. Then we return to 11 degrees Aquarius, which we won't get there until the end of this transit on February 20th. And so this backwards period, is reassessing all of those future goals and things, those ideas that are like getting us excited about where we're going and who's going to be involved in us. So this going back to 11 degrees Aquarius, which is a much earlier energy, shows that we've kind of taken on too many studies, too many ideas. We've had too much on our to-do list. And so the retrograde means that we are kind of we're organizing, we are getting in touch with those things that are absolutely necessary for us to achieve the future goals that we have now found out. And so before the 30th, you're already going to know what you want to do going ahead, because Mercury already went through the whole sign. And so those ideas have just been firing one after the other. You have probably been very busy these last couple of weeks with just meeting people, having a lot of conversations, getting some inertia going to start 2021. And this retrograde period, invites us into some stillness, some refinement. I really feel like the retrogrades in Mercury have to do with Virgo. Because if you think about it, Gemini and Virgo both rule this tiny planet. And Gemini is all about, well, first of all, Gemini is one of the first signs in astrology. It's the third. And so that means it's still concentrated on new stuff. It's the first air sign. And so that means that it has the first ideas. It starts the conversations. It, gets to the thing early or it just jumps out of the gate in a very intellectual way right away. And so Gemini people are usually the ones that come up with the ideas really quickly, and they're very adept at social conversations because they think on their feet really well. They have those instincts because they come so early in the zodiac. And Virgo is kind of the very opposing energy associated to Mercury. Virgo is very refined. Virgo is selective about where it puts its effort. Gemini is go, go, go. It's like it just jumps on a train without necessarily knowing the end result or what it's going to do on the way. Gemini is just excited for the change and the movement. Gemini is all about movement. And Virgo is, okay, well, I'm going to approach this train station or this bus system with a plan. Virgo is very calculated and is like, okay, I'm going to go from here to here, from there to there. This is going to take 20 minutes. That's going to take 5. I should get home around 4 p.m., kind of a thing. And so there's the planner, kind of the small planner, not like long term, but day-to-day stuff is ruled by Virgo. And to me, it seems like Mercury is usually Gemini. Mercury shows us really more social aspects of how we're communicating to people, how we are taking on new ideas, and how we are just moving throughout the day. Now, with retrogrades concerned with Mercury, I think this is when Gemini hands off the energy to Virgo. I think Virgo actually steps in. It's an earth sign. It is more cautious. It is more precise, and retrogrades can indicate that we are using that planet and focusing on our past, because we're essentially rewinding, right? The planet is going backwards to an earlier degree that it was at. And so we are, earth signs are always going back to the plan. They're kind of checking in. They're very business oriented. And that's where you see a lot of that is repetition. So that indicates that we're doing things that we've already done before when we have a retrograde, because we're going backwards. And so I think Virgo steps in during these periods and is like, okay, well, how do we make these ideas and all of this movement and maybe these people that you've met along the way, how do we bring them into reality? How do we assess what are the requirements to make this stuff worthwhile and beneficial to us? And not only in a practical sense, like we want to make money off of it, if it has to do with work, or even meeting somebody that is a good connection for us that we can sell something to, or vice versa. And Virgo is highly, highly tied to health. So for me, Mercury retrogrades involve, visits to the doctor, maybe some routine stuff, but I think, retrogrades are us getting a chance to heal ourselves. If Virgo is stepping in during those periods, I think Gemini maybe took on more than it could chew. And since Gemini is a very distracted sign in general, it has a hard time giving its full attention to any one thing or person. And so there are a lot of mistakes that happen with that sign because of that, because it's always divided. It's always seeing two things at once, or it's doing two things at once, or it's, it just has that duality. And so without being that whole or that focus, there's a lot of more mistakes, miscommunications that occur. And Virgo is like, okay, well, now we have to make clear what we didn't make clear the first time, Virgo's like, okay, great. Now I have to do this thing that wasn't on my list because, you, Gemini, fucked it up. So, and you promised things that you couldn't promise. You got a little too excited without thinking about it. And yeah. And I think Mercury is a lot less aware of its own health needs, because if it's go, go, go all the time, it's like the coffee addict in us that just wants more and more so it can keep doing and seeing and changing directions more and more. And so it's very hard for it to rest, to relax, to turn off that mind because it's so new, it's so fresh. Um, and that implies that, we're not paying attention to our physical self. We're not in that alignment where we're focused and we're aware of what's going on, because we're living so, mentally. It's really about the information. And so when the retrograde kicks in, I see that a lot of times people have to go to the doctor, and so that Gemini energy, I think, brings out, this need to overstep or overdo things, and not necessarily think them through. It's just quick ideas. It's very quick. It's like, how do I get from one conversation to the next? How do I continue this excitement or just go do something else that's exciting? Just wants to soak up a lot of experiences and people. And so I think a lot of times that runs a risk of you getting ailments or you getting sick or, you hurting yourself because you're just moving in a very unfocused way. And so you're more accident prone and mistake prone, when we're talking about Mercury in general. And a lot of people get confused by Mercury, even though it's like always present. And like every friend group, everybody knows a Mercury oriented person because they're so close to the sun, because we need Mercury people in our lives, to kind of give us this sense of mobility and change, and intrigue, because they get us interested in these topics, whether it's a news headline or it's a book or it's, you know some kind of meme, something. They're the ones that communicate it to us and get us interested, and so we need that to like stay on track with the world and in our own communities. Mercury people are just extremely important in that regard. Um, and that's why we often find them in our lives in a significant way. But yeah, and so applying this to the real world, Mercury retrograde right now, since Mercury is the planet of health, this really implies that whatever's going on with COVID, we can really see, where this planet is concerned. So Mercury in Aquarius already means that we're thinking about the solution. Aquarius is big picture. It has the ideas to solve all the problems at play, which is why we don't use it very often. Aquarius is very distant energy. It steps in when it's needed. It's like the Dumbledore archetype. He lives in a tower that's very far and detached, even though he's the headmaster of the school. He's not involved in a lot of the day-to-day stuff. And so when he comes in, it's in a big way. He steps in to fight Voldemort or to, talk Umbridge down or to, you know what I mean? Like his presence is very noticeable. Not just because he's so unique, but because he's very insightful and he understands like what really is going on behind the scenes, how things are going to play out. And it's just that innate wisdom in him at viewing the world in such a unique way. And so with Mercury and Aquarius, what it's been doing so far has been giving us these solutions. It's been giving us these ideas that are so distant from us that we don't think of a lot of the times. And so now we have them every which way. And so that means that our thinking mind has been so focused on what are we doing next? What does the future entail for us? What should I be doing down the road, or trying to predict not only our own lives, but what's happening with the presidency, the inauguration. What's Trump going to do next? It's very future focused and concerned with predictions. But Mercury in Aquarius is also getting us all interested in our own astrology, right? Because Aquarius is the sign of astrology. It is, the sky, the universe, the observable. And that's why a lot of Aquarians are really interested in space and sci-fi and astronauts and planes, because they're closer to that dimension or field, whatever you want to call it. And so Mercury in Aquarius actually gets us all really jived to learn a bit more about our astrology and our place in the universe. It's more expansive. It's less about what's happening in my personal life, but who am I? What am I meant to do? How can I be of best service to the world now that we're starting in some new directions and trying to let the future unfold here? So that's a lot with that. That's pretty much a lot of what this is about. And Mercury also gets us communicating a lot to our friend groups, social media, because it uses technology very heavily. And so that's where a lot of the gossip, the drama, because Mercury is very prone to gossip and drama, very high school and kind of the way it moves about things. It's very information based. And so it wants to find the juicy stuff. If you think of Mercury almost like this newspaper that is constantly reassessing what are today's headlines, what are the short stories, what are the big ones, and it's looking for those juicy pieces of information, that it can communicate to other people, because it always wants something to say. Mercury doesn't have a shortage of information to share, and that's their thing, is they always, I think, want to have a little something to add to the conversation to get people thinking, whether it's taking a different vantage point or it's just relaying news that other people weren't aware of. And because they themselves rely heavily on technology, they're very much the type that is constantly refreshing and looking at different platforms and telling their friends. And so Mercury in Aquarius can just really drive that idea based and make it bigger and more impactful. And so the conversations we're having are about, maybe where our differences is. Aquarius is strange energy. And so we're coming into contact of our own innate weirdness when Mercury's going through that. We're thinking about, man, I think I'm actually a lot different from the people around me, or, my friend group or anything. Like, I don't feel like I really fit in right now, or the things that I'm saying aren't resonating with people. Like that, it seems very strange. And so the conversations that we're having right now may feel a little weird, may feel unexpected, surprises, like shocking. That's all Aquarius kind of stuff. But yeah, that's a big meat of what it's been doing so far. And this retrograde is showing us that now we have all these insights, we have all these ideas, how we're going to move forward in 2021. And retrograde is like going back to the drawing board. It's like, now you're studying for the test. You've been assigned this test because you've learned all this information, and the retrograde is preparing you for that final examination that you have to pass in order to keep moving on, right? And so this is what that time feels like to us. It feels like we have to study those things that we've learned. So during January 30th to February 20th, we're going to be more focused on rehashing these ideas that we're getting now and seeing, how practical, how successful we can be in them. And that also entails us doing less. Retrogrades ask us to slow down in a lot of ways. And so Mercury being slowed down is why it's such a big deal, because we rely on it for mobility, for accomplishments and things and small things like throughout the day. And so that means that you're not going to be as productive during these time periods. You're just not. And if you try, you're going to tire yourself out even more and perhaps um, risk your own health, because these retrograde periods, we're supposed to be focusing more on our health, especially mental health, because this planet is so mentally oriented. Um, and so, make sure during this time period that you're not putting too much on yourself to do. And maybe you've established some routines before this time that get you prepared about what you need to do to get that future ready and going. Whether it's, for me personally in my own life, I have been redesigning my Instagram. And so I have been structuring on what day I need to post stuff, what the look of it's going to be, when I'm going to do live events, because I'm going to be bringing that to y'all, which I'm super excited about, and all that. And so I'm getting all of that ready. So when this time hits, I haven't been conscious of this, but I'm finding that this is very much in alignment with this retrograde during this conversation. I'm finding that I'm getting all this prepared, and so I'm set up for success when Mercury slows down, and I don't have this speed, this accessibility to get these things going. And so utilize these last few days to set yourself up for success, because once January 30th hits, you're going to have to scale it back. You're going to have less on your to-do list, less phone calls, less interactions, because it's going to feel like you're prepping for an exam, you're studying, and so you have to rehash those materials again and again. So yeah, that's a lot of what I see as Mercury retrogrades. I have a lot of Gemini placements in my chart, and so it's a big planet for me personally. But it is for us all, because again, it's so close to the sun, and the sun is who we are, and that means that that little tiny planet that moves so fast, can do a number on us. And that's why there's just this universal kind of shock and awe factor of Mercury retrograde in meme culture, because it really is significant, you know? And yeah, so speaking of COVID, um, we're talking about health here, Mercury being the planet of health because it's partly ruled by Virgo, the sign of health. Um, you know, this indicates that we are going and getting healed, right? Because like I was talking about, Gemini is going in all the directions and can't be slowed down. And so it's more mistake prone. But when we go into a retrograde phase, we are refining ourselves. We're saying, okay, this thing I have to do, this thing I have to do. And it's more structured, and it's more about the physical, because we're more aware of how much we can do and what we can't do, because we've slowed down essentially. And that essentially means that we're only focused on those essentials. And health is one of them. Obviously, it's tantamount. In this earth realm that we live and move in, physical health is extremely important. And so I think this Mercury retrograde is where we really see these vaccines take off, because Mercury in Aquarius is already about solutions. It's about solving these big problems that affect everybody. Aquarius is everybody. Leo is a personal, Leo is the self, but opposite it is everyone else, Aquarius. And so we are all having to heal ourselves essentially. That's what this retrograde is. And I think and once this period is over, once this transit is over, most of us are going to be on that track to where we've either gotten our first vaccine or two. And so I think this is a really exciting time, for us to finally start overcoming the restrictions of COVID. And so I think that's very much in alignment with what's happening already in the world, as more and more healthcare professionals and older people are getting We're going to see during this time period an influx in the mass population getting. And so that's very exciting things. And what's funny is where we see Mercury involved, it's always about two, right? We saw the 5 p.m. thing. It starts and ends at 5 p.m. That's 2 different days. And Mercury, since it rules Virgo, the planet of health, has some duality in health fields too. And I think it's so funny that this vaccine requires us to have 2 doses, not just one. And that's very much what this planet stands for. It's a second journey, a second trip. Um, and so it's the first time we get a taste of what's to come, right? Mercury, it's air oriented, it's seeing the future, what we need to do. And then Virgo, that second round, is that round that solidifies and actually ties up the work and makes us successful. And so we need it both ways, right? We need both doses for it to be effective. We need both energies with this planet for it to be effective. And that's why we really need to spin our perception on retrogrades, because they are essential for our health. Not just this one, but all of the planets retrogrades, because if we just keep moving forward constantly, we have no perspective. We have no sense of what's working and what's not. What is still unresolved within us. You know what I mean? What's not fully healed in us. And with this planet in particular, that's of the utmost importance. And yeah, and so I wanted to share that with you guys. If you are following along with this channel and you really like my work, please feel free to contribute. I have linked down below in the info section how to do that through Venmo or PayPal. I've recently opened a Venmo shop, and it's made it a lot easier to see the clients and what those transactions look like. I kind of like how it's organized in one place. So yeah, if you feel like this work has been inspiring to you, or if you really like this stuff that I'm doing, please feel free to make a contribution. Any contribution will get you a free gift, a special little surprise sent to you. Obviously, I'm not going to share with you what that is, but I think you'll like it. And so just keep that in mind. I'm going to be doing more of these lives as we go forward, and I'm going to try to make every transit talk alive. So I can figure out how to make this a Q&A, because I don't see a section for it right now. I don't know what it looks like on your guys' end, so feel free to send me any feedback once you've watched this. I know there's not a lot of people tuned in right now, but eventually some of you guys will see this, and please let me know what I could be tweaking or doing, since this is my first time. And yeah, just keep in mind that this retrograde is essential to heal us inevitably, because our thoughts can, take us into some scary directions sometimes. And so, we need a retrograde to scale us back, to be like, whoa, 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 whoa. If we follow that rabbit hole, we may end up in some weird places. So it's nice to have a retrograde in a planet that just is so busy and potentially chaotic. And yeah, and look at your own chart. So where you've got 11 degrees Aquarius to 26 degrees Aquarius, that is where it's playing out in your life. If it's in your 9th house, you're talking about maybe school. If you're in college, there's going to be some frustration over studies there. You're gonna have to slow down maybe your social time. If you're going to a lot of parties and stuff, you're gonna have to really buckle down and focus on your studies. If it's in your 7th house, you and your partner may be having some communication issues, whether it involves spending too much on the car and it not working, or there's some gossip that got in the mix where it's a he said, she said kind of thing in your friend groups, and now it's taking a toll on your relationship, stuff like that. So it really depends where it plays out in your own chart. And if you've got planets or asteroids in that proximity, 11 degrees to 26 degrees Aquarius, they are also going to be involved in this for you. And so do a little homework, right? Mercury is all about homework. It's educational in nature. And, Yeah, get on that. If you don't know your chart or if you have never gotten a reading before, please hit me up. Easiest way is to DM me on my Instagram at Tarot with Tyler. We can book a time for you. You can see the rates and the services that I offer. And yeah, it's a great time to learn more about yourself as we embark on the future. And we've got a few more days to do it. I feel like before this retrograde kicks in, we've got a little more energy to get things set up for success. And so make the most of it right now, okay? I hope you guys enjoyed this and stay tuned for the next Transit Talk Live. This has been exciting, and I think I'll try to do it outside or a little more of a glamorous space here. And yeah, that's what I got. So you guys take care. Follow along on Instagram if you're not already. There is important stuff happening on the daily there. So cool things. And I'll see you next time.